everyone was so excited. Like, we knew Harry was the one that was going to bring the black into the royal family.
I don't know if I would do what he's doing if it was my family.
If my mum was going on with a madness and it spilled out in public, I'd have to call her out.
Do you know how privileged you have to be as a black woman to never ever think about race?
We're talking about one of the most privileged, if not the most privileged white person on the planet.
A lot of white people really don't get racism until somebody they care about really is experiencing something mad.
Mate, you've been going to Africa for how many years? Why have you never spoken about anything to do with racism before?
It's important to know his agenda when he stops helping us.
Right, that's
because
what I mean.
If you know an agenda, then you'll understand when the agenda stops.
The DJ who posted the image of
the monkey.
It felt like a total assault.
For a lot of black Brits, this is something that we experience all the time, where people go, oh, it's not racist though, is it? And it's like, no, but it is racist.
How long are you going to be unconscious for?
Wake up, big man.
Sure, he's not Malcolm X. He's never going to. He's never going.
Anybody that tried to say that.
Oh, no, they will.
This is the +44 podcast. I'm Zeze Millz.
Yeah, what's that about?
What was that all
And
about?
I'm Sideman. Music,
Culture.
UK. This is +44
From Wondery.
Wondery.
So today's podcast is a Prince Harry special. Prince Harry has recently released his autobiography, Spare. And in the lead up to the book's release, there's been interviews that he's done, which have sparked a lot of controversy.
And today we are joined. You can introduce yourselves, actually. Why not? Because I was going to introduce you, but I thought, why don't you guys introduce? So who have we got here? What do you do?
So my name is Melissa Sigodo. I'm a community reporter for The Mirror. I cover issues affecting Black, Asian and other marginalized communities.
Right.
I'm Ramel Affleck. I'm a writer, community organizer. I lead charities and I've been campaigning for almost 2 decades. So yeah, that's me.
You've been campaigning for 2 decades?
Almost 2 decades.
You look 2 decades?
I'm not going to tell you my age, but yeah, 2 decades. 2 decades.
How are you guys today?
Good. Ready to dig in.
All right. Okay. Now, before we talk about Prince Harry, let's rewind a few years to when Meghan first came onto the scene. What was you guys' first impression of Meghan?
We're like, who wants to go first?
You start.
My first impression of Meghan, I knew her from Suits. Because I used to watch
say I knew her. I was going to be like, swear you knew her.
I was ready as well. I was like, okay.
Can you imagine? You brought me here. I'm like, I'll give you the insight. No. I'd seen her in Suits, and yeah, she was an American actress. That's as far as I knew. And then obviously we found out that her and Harry were dating. And to be honest with you, I didn't really think much of it at the time. I just thought, here we are, a couple getting married. Harry was going to marry someone at some point. So I didn't really think too deeply about who she was as a person or anything.
Was you excited that she was mixed race? Because I know when it first got released that he was dating her, there was this, everyone was so excited. Like, we knew Harry was the one that was going to bring the black into the royal family. It was like this whole thing. It was just like, okay, everyone chill out. Did you, as a black woman, was there any sort of like, oh, this is amazing, there's a mixed race woman coming into the royal family? How did you feel?
If I'm being totally honest, I didn't feel either way.
Okay, right.
It never struck me like, oh, this is a black woman marrying into the royal family. Obviously, she is a biracial woman, but she's white passing. So I felt like, I just didn't even think about it that deeply. I think if she was a darker skinned woman, it might have struck me more like, oh, okay, this is actually happening.
I think the same. I knew her from Suits, not something I'd watched particularly, but I did know her from that program. And if I'm honest, I knew what it was going to mean more widely, but did it mean something to me personally? I can't say I was that overjoyed. And I think for me, ultimately, we still have to remember the backdrop of the royal family and what it's built on and all of those sorts of things. So did I think it was going to mean something? Yeah, absolutely. Did I think it was going to change British society in some way? Absolutely. Could I have predicted where we got to now? No, actually. I knew it was going to be difficult for her, but I never thought it would result in them leaving the family. And, more power to them for taking control in a situation where clearly they didn't feel like they had any control. And that, the people who they felt should have been protecting and supporting them, they clearly didn't feel worse. So yeah, I don't think I felt too toughly about it, but I do remember the banter, and I remember some people being very passionate about it and almost saying this is a symbolic moment. And it is in terms of history, but in the context of changing things for Black Brits, I'm not convinced it did, if I'm honest with you.
I think when it struck me that, okay, this is the union of a white person and a biracial person, was at the wedding when they had the choir sing.
Right.
That's when I was like...
The wedding had black elements. They put some reggae sauce in the wedding.
That choir was good.
Yeah.
That choir was good. I remember
was there a black pastor as well?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I'm kind of the same as you guys. I think I was like, oh, this is cool. And a little bit of it was like, I wasn't surprised that it was Harry, because he's always kind of, in my eyes, been like the rebel, quote unquote, of the family. But again, for me as well, I see her as white passing. So I remember early on when I used to do my hot topics as well, and I said, oh, she doesn't give me like black girl. There's nothing about her that I see and I relate to as a black woman. And people were like, what does that mean?
I don't think that came through until she started her role duties. And again, I didn't pay enough attention. So, you know, you can't quote me on saying that she didn't do anything before, but that she did make some choices in the way that she did her role duty. So there were certain schools that she went to that were predominantly black, and I saw the way in which those children responded to her, and I thought, those kind of moments were powerful, because I think that definitely will have altered their childhood and the way that they view themselves. So those sorts of moments were powerful. But I agree with you. Did I see her as coming in and being something that, you know, we could all really get behind? Not as much as maybe some other people did.
And I don't think I was shocked either when, you know, all the kind of subtle racism comments were happening. And I was almost like, what did you lot think was going to happen? Did you think this was, are we in a bubble here? Like, we know what's going on. Why would you think, like what you said, like what the royal family has been built on, the history, or just the UK in general as well? Like, why are we shocked about this?
I think I wasn't surprised that people were racist. I think I was surprised by how far the racism went, especially in the media, because, you know, there's a code of conduct. There's a process people are supposed to follow. And seeing Danny Baker, the DJ, who posted the image of
the monkey.
That was stained in my mind.
That was pretty far, you know, gone. I couldn't believe that. That really shocked me, because it felt like a total assault. You know, you expected people to say things, but just never to that degree. That was all out
that's
racism.
the thing.
But you have to push people, and when you push them, then you see how they really feel, because they've never seen this before. It's like, okay, you guys do your black stuff over there, but now it's like, whoa,
you're encroaching.
You're pretty close now. You're kind of near. Now, do you think there's anything to the fact that she was American that played a part in this?
Yeah,
not just that she was biracial.
I think so. Yeah, and I think even Prince Harry has said, hasn't he, that William and Kate have said things, had made stereotypes about her being American. So I definitely think that has played a part. And, you know, Americans do things a bit differently.
I don't think so. I think if it was a white American woman, no. I don't think like there would... I don't know, but I think it wouldn't be so cynical, if that makes sense. It would be like, maybe, oh, you know, the Americans, they do this, or the Americans are loud, or something.
I think it could have been things we would laugh about potentially.
But that's what I mean. Like, it would be like stereotypical.
It wouldn't be to this level.
That's what I'm saying. So I think if it was a white American woman, no, I don't think it would be that much of a big deal. If anything, I think people would be like, oh, look, American, we're all coming together. This is, you know, what we've always wanted kind of vibe. So I don't think if she was, no, I don't actually think that's the part.
You know why I slightly disagree? Because of watching The Crown. And having watched The Crown,
that's David's reference point. The Crown.
I've now realised that this family been messy. This is nothing new.
Absolutely.
There has been problems with who married who from before even Lizzie.
That's why it's wild.
Queen Elizabeth was only queen because her dad's brother abdicated the throne because of who he wanted to marry. And then even Queen Elizabeth marrying Philip, people didn't like that either. And then her sister Margaret trying to marry the security guard guy. People didn't like that, and they didn't like the actual guy that she married. Then you go down to Prince Charles and Camilla. People didn't like that either. There's been a history of people feeling like people were unfit to join the family.
I think there's a difference between not liking them and what they've done to Meghan. That's what I'm saying. So if it was maybe a white American woman, I think, there might be a bit of discourse, but it would not be like to this extreme. And I think a lot of people will say that, you know, like even a couple of my friends who are like black girls, and they'll say, well, you know, Fergie was treated really badly. Like, you know, they were, and I'm like,
Sorry.
it's not the same.
It's not the
Like,
same
you can't,
thing.
and also everyone keeps comparing it to, but this has never happened before.
Also,
So
and I agree with you. And I think there are two backdrops that are really important to this. So one of the things that's really important to the context of this is, I don't know if any of you saw, there was an interview by Neil Basu, who was one of the most senior British Asian police officers. And he did a slight tell-all interview. It wasn't really a tell-all, but he exposed some things. And one of the things he spoke about was Meghan and Harry. And he spoke about the rise of far-right terrorism in the UK and how Meghan was actually front and center of some of that in terms of the hate that because there was a lot of misinformation about whether they were really at risk and all. And he said, no, I've seen it. And I think that is one of the things we have to add into the context. Those weren't conversations we needed to have with any of those other roles.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We didn't need to talk
exactly.
about far-right terrorism for, as you say, when you look at the way in which Meghan is treated, one of the things that it reaffirmed for me is it doesn't matter what you do as a black person, you can literally bow to whoever you want. There are always going to be people in British society, white people predominantly, let's say, who are not going to give you any amount of respect. And that was one of the things that it really just proves, because one of the things that really irritates me is this idea that as long as we're really good black people, as long as we do make all the right decisions, we'll be viewed by the public as good people. This has only reaffirmed that actually, largely, what did she ever really do wrong? I'm not saying she was perfect, but did she do anything that was particularly crazy? No, it wasn't. And yet she still wasn't welcomed in with open arms. And she was royalty. If you can't be royalty and earn some respect, then what have the rest of us got to get? Do you know what I mean? The scraps, really.
Does her Americanness play a part in the way she was treated? It absolutely does. I'm not saying that is the full scope of why she was treated that way. Of course, because of the color of her skin. But I also do think that
about Hollywood.
her Americanism did play a part in that, but it was completely overshadowed by the fact that she is a black woman.
Yes. We're speaking very confidently and assuredly about the racist aspects of this, but according to Harry, he said it's unconscious bias because he's kind of made, to some people, a U-turn in a recent interview that he did where he's stating now that he didn't say his family is racist. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, just for a bit of context, in an interview with Oprah in 2021, Meghan said Archie's skin color had been questioned by the royal family, implying the royal family were racist.
Yeah.
And in a recent interview with ITV News with Tom Bradby, asked Harry about the racial implications. He denied they were implying the royal family were racist and said the word racist was used by the British tabloid press, not Meghan.
Well, that's true. At the end of the day, the conversation happened between Meghan and Oprah. And no matter what she said there were concerns about her skin color. Oprah, we all remember her reaction. What?
But why is it taking him this long to say, oh, no, we never said that? That it was almost like, okay, you've been happy for everyone to run with this for the last almost 2 years. He's seen what happened after. You would have seen everything that happened after the interview. He's been releasing statements when he feels like he wants to release a statement. So why didn't he release a statement, say, by the way, I think everyone's taking this out of context. This is not what it was. This is He's let us all run with it until this moment now. And it's like, why? And that's why I'm very skeptical about him being the ambassador for racism now. And I don't even think he himself understands what racism is. And I think it's hard when like maybe your family or the establishment is something that has contributed to something. It's like when people say something bad about you. You want to make sure you're not, that's not me. I'm not like that. Someone says you're selfish. You're like, no, I'm not selfish. You're everything but selfish. Oh, I just like to have things to myself. That's selfish. Do you know what I mean? That everything else but calling yourself the word, that's the issue here.
We know that unconscious bias is a term that's used when people want to understand racism but don't want to be necessarily labeled racist. It's a way for the conversation to be opened up to address it but not really address it. And I think Harry himself is on a journey, to be quite honest, where he's figuring it out. And rightly so. I don't think he totally understands what racism is. And he's a white man. He's never going to experience it. But at the same time, I wouldn't throw him in the bin as an ambassador because he has really challenged an institution, a long-standing institution. And he's brought racism to the top of the agenda to the point where...
Because of his wife.
Because of his wife, but also, he could have kept quiet and let Meghan do all the talking. But I think they're stronger as a two. And she's not a princess without him being a prince. And as a prince, he has to use his role. And I think that's precisely what he's doing He's challenging the institution to talk about racism. I'm pretty sure they don't want to.
Look, the only thing I would say is he's not my ambassador. That's what I would say.
Not mine either,
Personally, I don't claim him in that way. I think what he's doing is important. I would never take that away from him. And I think it's right that he's spoken out. And I think he had to play a role. And it would have been, to me, it would have been weird had he allowed Meghan to go off and talk about this and not showed her that backing, because I think that was important. What I am slightly irritated, but I think the more important thing for me was, if you're going to take a platform on racism, I do feel like you just need to do a bit of learning. Do you know what I mean? Like, take a step back, acknowledge where you are, and if you don't really understand the issues, then be a bit more open about that and say, do you know what, I'm on a journey. And he has kind of acknowledged that, but only really fleetingly. And for me, one of the things that's so obvious is, trust me, if I was dating somebody and somebody else in their family said to me, oh, we're a bit worried about, you're quite dark, like, that's racist. I don't care what anyone says. Right. And obviously they may not want to term it that way, but it doesn't get any clearer than that. And one of the things that I've already said on this very publicly is, ultimately, this is, for a lot of Black Brits, this is something that we experience all the time, where people go, oh, it's not racist though, is it? And it's like, no, but it is. It is racist. So let's just name it what it is, rather than trying to skirt around, because ultimately that's about fragility. That's about the idea that we have to kind of walk around on our tiptoes and make sure that everyone feels comfortable. No, the uncomfortableness I felt in the racism you've experienced, you can feel that while I'm explaining to you that it was racist, because it ain't going to last that long, but I'm going to tell you. I'm sorry, but...
I think, though, the reason why I keep saying for his wife is because what man wouldn't stand up for his wife? So this is my thing. It's like a man in the public eye. If you class yourself as this man and you're seeing your wife get attacked, right? If his wife was white and she was getting attacked for being obese or whatever, he's gonna come and protect her, because that's your wife and that's what you're supposed to do, right? So the idea now, just because he's protecting his wife, mean now that he's speaking for all Black people. Mate, you've been going to Africa for how many years? Why have you never spoken about anything to do with racism before? You've been around Black people. You want to integrate yourself with the urban crowd every so often and whatnot. You would have seen things. So if something was really something on your heart and you felt like you needed to speak about it, then you would have been speaking about it from before. And that's what I'm saying. There's a difference between he's sticking up for his wife because she's been racially attacked and she's had a lot of mean things said to her. And that's okay. And I respect him for that. But to now make it seem like he's out here flying the flag for everyone, I can't subscribe to that. And that's where I stand.
I give him a little more credit than that, because ultimately we know that the institution's quite controlled over what the palace can say anyway, because they have to be politically neutral and all these sorts of things. So we know that the palace is clearly on its journey when it comes to speaking on racism at all, because I feel before the incident at Buckingham Palace, I'm sure if we Googled the word racist plus Buckingham Palace, I don't think they've probably ever commented on racism.
I know there'll be incidents, but not them.
But have they actually explicitly spoken about it? That's what I mean, sorry. Have they actually explicitly spoken about it? I'm not convinced. So I don't know if we can necessarily take that from the situation. And it does feel like he feels quite personally affronted by it. Whether some of that is to do with her being his wife, I think so. But I think a lot of other white people will relate to it. A lot of white people really don't get racism until somebody they care about really is experiencing something mad. And I've had the same thing to me, where I've had some mad things happening to me, and some people who would never have spoken to me about it, suddenly, because they cared about me, they're like, oh, I get it now, and I need to show you some solidarity, and that's what the solidarity needs to look like. So even I've experienced it. I'm sure there'll be other people who have had those really vile moments, and it took that for them to realize. I don't think it should take that, and that's where I won't give him credit, because I don't think it should have taken that for him to, feel he should speak. I mean,
everyone has their awakening. I think that for Harry, Meghan was his awakening. We're talking about white people here, and in fact, we're talking about one of the most privileged, if not the most privileged white person on the planet, who has never really had to go out on a limb and introduce himself to other communities that he's not a part of. And with Harry, we've seen him on a journey. He's learned a lot from his mother. He's traveled to Africa. He has been involved in HIV and AIDS charities. He seems to be the royal that has kind of had a natural instinct to want to do something out of the norm. But obviously he met Meghan, and seeing the racism that Meghan faced, like you said, seeing it happen directly to somebody he was in love with, that was his awakening. And I think he's running with it. It's not perfect, but we can't let the pursuit of perfect make the good the victim, if that makes sense.
And it's what's going to happen. He has been dealing with traditional media, and so he has an aversion to it, is against it. and he's come now to social media to wrap our arms in his warm embrace, or our arms in their warm embrace. But he's gonna find out that this is not a safe place either, because we don't do. He came over here for shades of grey. That's why he thought he could say that they said that they had issues about the baby's color, and then we would just take that as that. No, we're gonna call that racist. There is, social media has as much problems as traditional media does, because people, how we're speaking today, which might be very tempered, is not how the comment sections are speaking. It's not how people are speaking in their homes. And he is going to find that if his agenda, and I think that's why I like what Zeze is saying, in that she's speaking to his agenda. And it's important to know his agenda when he stops helping us.
Right, that's
because
what I mean.
if you know an agenda, then you'll understand when the agenda stops. And for me, I've always questioned his intentions.
Oh, you said that really perfectly. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
Young
I've always questioned his intentions, because none of this would be happening if he was not married to Meghan.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
And with an understanding of that, I also understand not only that this is happening because of Meghan, but it's also happening because of money. Because now he is using our interest. He's like, oh, they really like when I point out the institution. Let me keep doing it. And the feeling of love that you get when you feel rejection over another side, it's like you go to where you feel loved, but he's mistaking our mutual dislike for love. And mutual dislike is not love. We don't like the system either. It's not that we love you. So when he starts coming out and saying weird stuff, like, do you realize that people are willing to abandon this man after everything he said because he said his brother beat him up?
Do you know what?
People are willing to done with him over that.
No, I agree with you. And I think one of the things that's interesting is there have been plenty of commentators that have pointed out these issues. And, a lot of people have pointed out, people like Shantae Joseph, who have pointed out ultimately, if you look at the way that he's talking, he is still trying to wrap the institution in a slight cotton wool, in the fact that he's not really being as direct as he should really be in the context of what we're talking about. I don't think people are as naive to take it all on face value.
Do you think he should be? I don't expect anything more from him than what he's doing. And I'll tell you why. This is his family. It's not our family, so it's easy for us to talk. I don't know if I would do what he's doing if it was my family.
Sorry, mum, but if my mum was going on with a madness and it spilled out in public, I'd have to call her out.
I just think that he's done us all a favor, really. He's exposed.
He's done enough for me.
He's exposed his own family, for goodness sake.
His own blood.
He's exposed them for a lot of things, him and Will fighting, Kate and Meghan, their row over bridesmaid dresses, but ultimately he's exposed the racism, the institutional racism within his own family, but aside from within his own family, within that institution. And I think that's incredibly massive, and we can't take that for granted. Sure, he's not Malcolm X. He's not. He's never going to. He's never going
Anybody that tried to say that.
They will.
He's never going to be.
People
he's never
are
going
prisoners
to be.
of the moment. He is the Martin Luther King of 2023.
He will never. He will never be that person, because once again, we're talking about a man who has come from immense wealth and privilege. He's not going to go up there and say all the perfect things. He's not. But what he has done is actually exposed the racism that us Black people have been talking about for decades and decades. And now it's on the table. It's making the British public very uncomfortable. It's making British commentators, British journalists, British tabloids very uncomfortable, and they have to deal with it because as long as he keeps talking, they have to keep on coming back to the racism in the monarchy. They have to come back to the racism against Meghan, and we have to hold their feet to the fire about it, to be honest. He's not the enemy. It's the Jeremy Clarksons, it's the Piers Morgans, and it's all that lot who have literally put his wife through hell. And I think that's worth something, that he stood up to that.
The only caveat I will add into that is, as somebody, as I told you at the top, I've been campaigning for a long time, and I've seen a lot of people put a lot on the line to speak truth, to speak power to truth, who had enormously less privilege, that they couldn't go off and get a Netflix deal after they spoke their truth. What he's done has been important, and he's given us a point and an opportunity for sure, and he's opened up the gates. All I know is that I've seen plenty of people have to expose their family and talk about perhaps maybe the homophobia they experienced in the home. That's essentially exposing your family. You might not be saying here's my family's address and everyone come and harass them, but you're still everyone who knows them knows who you're talking about. Your family are not anonymous. So for me, I think, and again, as somebody who's also had to speak out about about things that have not gone very well, very publicly on my own, I know that's a madness. And I couldn't go off and get a Netflix deal. So I don't know. That's the only reason why I'm measured in how much I afford him, because ultimately
definitely.
he has got that privilege.
He has,
and he
and
was always going to be safe, really.
If you let the history books tell it, in 3 decades or so, you will hear that Harry was the one that changed the course of Black history.
I mean, this is historic. Let's have it right. It is a historic moment. No matter what people say, because you know what he's done by speaking his truth, by writing a book, by doing interviews. Imagine the people who have had all this dominance over his life, over speaking about his life, him taking that and saying, no, actually, I want to correct the record. XYZ is what happened. These are the text messages. Here's the receipts. No one can take that away from him. And I think there are people who are invested in seeing his downfall, quite honestly, because he's been the biggest threat to the racist agenda for a very, very long time. He has.
I see everything that Harry and Meghan are doing as not just they're bullying us out here talking like a victim, but really this is revenge.
But why not?
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not, but they are not marketing it as if they are. And I get this with Meghan a lot. I think she's very good at playing the woe is me so that we, her army.
He's Piers Morgan.
No, I'm not. Listen.
But also this is the thing. Where we go wrong sometimes as Black people is like, we can never criticize another Black person. And if we do, I don't think there's anything wrong with David saying, this is my idea of Meghan, but it doesn't mean I agree with how the press are treating her. I don't really take to someone. However, I don't agree with how she's been treated. There's loads of things that I watched in that documentary where she said she never thought about race before coming to this. How can you not think, as a mixed race woman that lives in America, how can race not be at the forefront of your head?
But I think
plenty of people like her though.
But that's what I'm saying, because she's white passing. So that means you only acknowledged your blackness till you got to this country.
But not just white passing people though. I've sat on interview panels with other prominent Black commentators who want to deny racism in the way that it takes place in the UK.
A Black woman, being a Black woman is at the forefront of my head all the time. Meaning when I go somewhere, I know how I'm going to be treated as a Black woman. She didn't say there wasn't racism. She said she never even thought about the racism that she might experience when she came to this country. Do you know how privileged you have to be as a Black woman to never ever think about race? When I said this, people said, oh, you're coming for her. You're like Piers Morgan. It's like, no, I'm just pointing out things that I think are weird about this situation. Does that mean it's okay the way she's been treated? No, I'm not. I don't think how she's been treated it's racism. There's no two ways about it.
Oh, yeah,
however, there are certain things that she's done and her behavior where I'm a bit like,
But I think your thoughts and feelings are founded on something. And unfortunately, David, I think you saying her being woe is me. Could you give us an example? Because to me, it sounds like Piers Morgan saying, I don't believe she wanted to commit suicide. How can you possibly even know that? How can you believe somebody is being woe is me
when I say
when
woe
we've
is
seen,
me is because
okay,
let's say you punch me in my face. I can punch you back in a way that makes it seem like I didn't throw a punch. That's the point that I'm making. The royal family have the institution have attacked them. And I believe that they are attacking back, but acting like the attack back isn't an attack back.
Is it a retaliation?
Retaliation is still an attack?
No, but it's a response.
Yes,
it's a response to an attack.
Is still an attack back, because there's a difference between... And that's why I think their trick has worked on you, because I believe that they are like, we are going to get them.
But if Netflix came to you and said, let's do a documentary, would you do it?
Violently.
Exactly. So
I'm not going to lie.
But hear what I'm saying. It's
the same thing, really.
But when you catch me in that documentary, what you're going to hear is a very balanced view.
I think there's two sides to this. I think that I'm going to say I'm putting myself in Meghan Markle's shoes. I wake up, I see a headline straight out of Compton. I see somebody saying that my child is a chimpanzee. You know, I see Piers Morgan telling me, oh, you didn't want to commit suicide. That's a load of rubbish. You know, all these things that are happening and my family is not defending me and they know I'm suicidal. If I leave, and funnily enough, they've done it with grace. They've not even come outright and named names and told the dates and locations. They've just simply said, we didn't like the way we're treated and we want this to change. That's not an attack.
It was actually worse that they didn't say a name.
Well,
I'll tell you why. But them not saying a name put everybody under speculation. If you don't put a name on that bullet, you are literally putting every single member of that family, as soon as she said that to me, could have been the one that said, well, go on for that baby's colour.
I just want to ask though, do we think there is a difference between racism and unconscious bias?
I think that the impact of either of those things is the same. I think if you have unconscious bias, you're unconscious about what you're doing, but essentially it's the same impact that a racist action would have.
I like that answer.
You know
why I want to say there's unconscious bias and there is somewhat of a difference, because I want grace when our time comes. When we're talking about anything against us, we are very quick to say unconscious bias is not a thing. When the conversation is about us and other communities, we quickly want to jump and say, but wait, I didn't know. So for instance, if somebody starts talking about LGBTQ rights and they come for somebody that might not be as clued up, very quick to say, wait, I didn't know. And we want that grace when we didn't or wasn't sure how we should have termed something or what we should have said. But then when it's our turn now to give grace based on somebody not quite understanding the intricacies of a topic like racism.
For me, though, grace should not stem from the avenue that the racism came about, if that made sense. So whether it was unconscious bias, whether someone was really malicious and came out and did something, or whether you felt someone should have known better because, in my case, I've spoken on it for years, whatever. I don't think those things matter. I think the end result is what we should always look to.
Grace just determines how you address it, because you can say to somebody, you should have known better, and there still is grace. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, we live in, cancel culture and stuff like that. Everybody's giving Harry grace. This young man went to a party in a Nazi t-shirt, and the audacity to almost shift the blame.
I don't think he shifted the blame though.
Bro, that would get me mad. If you come to a party in a Nazi shirt, don't tell me your brother and your sister-in-law.
But this is what I'm trying to tell you. That's why I agree with what you were saying, that ultimately the end result, the impact, because this is why I get frustrated when we talk about racism. I couldn't care less whether the person who said the racism is normally the most lovely person in this world. I could not care less, really, to be honest. If the impact was still the same as the person next door who was malicious in the way they said it, ultimately there's still something to address. And that's the only reason. I'm not saying we shouldn't ever give people grace. I think we absolutely owe it to them, but I don't think we should be giving people grace based on where it started. We should be giving people grace based on where it ended and where we think they're going to go next.
There is a fakeness that I am finding in society today, where we want stuff we don't give. I can't jump down somebody's throat on a Monday but want grace on a Tuesday. That just don't work for my brain.
I don't think though the term unconscious bias is to do with grace though. I just think it's to do with making people feel good about themselves and not being classed as a racist. That's what I think it is. And that weight of, oh, you're a racist or you're being racist, that feeling. So it's something to just make them feel like, oh, well, I'm not that bad. It's just here, but it's the same thing.
How many people have we ever heard admit, I did this because of my unconscious bias? I don't think people even use that.
When you back them into a corner, that's the first thing they're going to...
But I find more people will label the situation before the person even outright says...
To me,
that's not what Harry was trying to say, though. He was trying to make it very separate.
Yeah.
Almost as though there's like a little wall between the two.
He doesn't understand.
No, he does understand. And he did it in the document. He said it in the documentary, like, I'm not even aware sometimes of the unconscious bias that I have. It's just a nice way to make yourself feel better about not participating in racism, basically.
Well, I did that thing. I did do it, but I didn't intend to hurt you when I did it. There is cachet in that. I can admit that I did something that hurt you. I just want you to know I didn't intend to hurt you.
It doesn't matter. It's still racist.
And I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. It's all just to make the other person feel better.
But that's the thing, like what you said,
I want grace.
Is based on what they do after
the motivations. You can absolutely, I've had to be very direct with people at times in my career. This is in the workplace where I've had to be really clear. What just happened there was racist. And people are looking back in my face shocked. And sometimes I've said that and been almost the only person of color in the room. Or maybe there's one or two of us and we're kind of, that time when you look at each other because you already know.
Yeah.
But they ain't quite clocked it yet. You got to wait for the end of the sentence so you can say, I'm not sure about that. Yeah. And one of the things that irritates me about some of the situations I face, I'm not saying no one ever needs grace. I believe we have to afford grace because otherwise how are we going to function as a society? But one of the things that irritates me is there are people who use it as a shield. And that's when I do find it difficult. You know, I can think of some examples where I've been telling you this is racist.
Well, this is what I was about to say.
Or
And
you-
how long
you
are you
can
going
do
to
the
be
reading
unconscious for? Like, how long are you going to be unconscious for? Do you
Wake up,
understand what I'm
big man.
saying? Because it's like the things that you're unconscious about, the things
That's
that
the-
we are constantly talking about.
you hit
So then
it.
it's like me,
That's the
like we're
other
saying,
bit.
like other communities. Like you might say, in the past, you might have said something ignorant towards another community, and some might say, that's wrong, that's this. But then if you keep saying that thing again, it's like, how many times is it going to be unconscious? Now you're just being ignorant and racist.
Okay, and actually, this is an important point that I'm glad we got to, because I completely forgot about it. So you reminded me. That's why I was slightly perplexed by the whole situation that happened at the palace, because the whole "are you, where you really from" situation.
Could we
It's-
give some
it's-
context to that?
Yeah, actually. So the rest of the context, I guess, is a conversation that was allegedly happened between, was it Lady Hussey? I think
Lady
it was,
Hussey.
and Ngozi, who's
Fulani,
the leader
yeah.
of the charity Sister Space, right? And so we had the whole situation that unfolded there. And the only reason I probably afforded her less credit than a fair amount of other people was the term "where are you really from" has been used so many times that I'm sure there are even comedy sketches that feature that. So if it's got to a point where it's so well known that we're laughing about it, I'm not sure I can believe that you, as somebody who's met thousands of people across this world, your whole job is literally to network with people. You probably should have known at this point that to ask somebody that, even though it's not always offensive, if you're continuously trying to drill down on it,
yeah.
at that point you should have been like, actually, maybe there's something, maybe I should draw back.
So
maybe.
when I say
I
grace,
don't
what
know.
you guys hear me say is let them stamp in your head 19 times. That's what you guys hear. When
What was
I
you
say-
going to, Minister, you was going to say something?
I was just
Yeah,
going
go
to say with the Ngozi Fulani situation,
Yeah.
it wasn't, I think it's a bit more obvious than that, actually. I think that what was telling of the situation was the fact that she approached her, moved her hair out of the way of her badge, and
yeah.
then
It was
asked
done
her
after-
where
there
she
was
was
no
from.
grace after she put her hand on her. For me.
Yeah, no.
That was done after that.
Another, just before we round up, has anyone come across where Harry was like, Africa is my thing? So basically, in the ITV interview, just for some context, describing the rivalry in his relationship with his older brother, William, Harry said the Prince of Wales once said, Africa was my thing, you can't have it into relation to charity work.
Yeah, that was very revealing. I think it exposed the colonialism, obviously, and the fact that they would both see Africa as sort of like their property, essentially, that, it's this whole white savior
the
complex
white
as well.
savior complex.
Yeah.
I want it to bother me so I can be a part of the group. But it's a quotation of a conversation behind closed doors. Just imagine your life behind closed doors. They, as a family, bungle up for years now, for decades, and go to countries and do this and watch people throw flowers at their feet. You think they don't be, no, I'm going to this one. No, I'm going to, of course. I don't know why, but it just seems to me that would just be apparent that would happen. And until you come out of that, you don't see the problematic nature of how that is, because these people are really suffering. The way these boys have probably been grown up and groomed, right? We as a family go to these places. I believe that they are truly seeing how people see them and the colonial history more closer to nowadays.
But that's why I don't, when people are like, oh yeah, but he's gone to Africa, and I'm like, that's his job. Countries are part of the Commonwealth. They have to go there and do their duty. I don't see it as something like, oh, we should be thankful that he's going to Africa. That's what he has
That
to
was
do.
his job, yeah.
That's
But
his
he's
job.
still doing that now, despite having left the royal
because
family.
he's happened to like
the
it.
same, because
And
of the
he's
same reason
giving
everybody
money-
does everything these days.
And
Clout.
he's giving 1.5 million pounds or dollars to a charity in Botswana. I think that says a lot about, it's not just about, oh, he was doing it because it was a job. But I think that once that job ends, he has no need to go out and do that.
It's possible he has a genuine connection now.
I'm not-
It is possible.
Yeah, I'm not
It
saying
is
he
possible.
isn't, but I think sometimes as Black people, we are swayed and reeled in very easy anytime somebody white kind of in a high position wants to, as we said, wants to look like they want to save us. I'm happy that he's sticking up for his wife, and I think that that's what he should do. But the idea that now he is the person flying the flag for racism and he's speaking up for Black people's rights and all these other things and Black this and Black that, I can't subscribe to that.
I think we're underestimating the power that the royal family has here.
Yeah.
This is the most influential, most powerful family in the world. And the fact that Harry is talking about racism, because essentially
helps
that's
us.
what it always
But
goes
like you
back
said,
to.
it's agenda. What
We
do we
have
think is going to
benefited.
change now that Harry's decided to?
Things are changing already.
I think
What's this?
it's
Go on, tell me.
exposing more and more what the reality of the society we
But
live in is.
Okay, what's going to happen?
What's
Are the royal family going to now all of a sudden?
Things are happening.
It's accountability.
What? Can we?
You think that everything
one
isn't
minute.
together?
Okay, where's the accountability? Because I ain't had no. Has anyone had a statement from the royal
From
family?
the royal family.
The thing is, the fact that Harry is talking about racism has put it on each and every newspaper in this country. That has never happened before. And yeah, we hear all the pundits who are the loudest who say, oh, we don't want to hear about him. He should shut up. You know, we don't want to hear about the wokarati. But there are people who are being changed, who are questioning, like, hang on a minute. You know, this royal family, why have they done this
the
again?
Two things can be true, though. I think it's true to say that largely the things that uphold racism in British society are still intact following what's happened. So I think it's true to say that most Black Brits won't see an instant change. But I also think we can remain optimistic about some of the opportunity that it's created in the conversations, etc., is because many of these issues that they've spoken about, there will be Black Brits across the country who won't ever get the platform to talk about some of the things that they've spoken about that are happening to them on the day-to-day. And a good example of that is the whole white savior complex. You spoke about it and said you weren't particularly surprised by it. I don't think I was either, because ultimately, if you look at the charities in the UK that are doing that work in the global south or doing the work within the continent of Africa, all of those charities are mostly white-led, and let's face it, they have the same issues in the way that they talk about it as well, because they feel this same savior complex. And I think, you know, there are campaigns like Charity So White, etc. They now have this very big hook and an opportunity to say, you see what he was talking about? That's you lot too, you know. Do I think that that's enough? No, it's not. But I do think it's a massive starting point in a way that not many other people could have.
I think people are more excited about that, and that is what is pushing this forward. Then there's going to be this change happening.
This is the chickens coming home to roost.
To some extent.
It's the chickens coming home to roost. You know, in terms of Ngozi Fulani, if Harry and Meghan had never mentioned any racism in the royal family, and Ngozi Fulani went to Buckingham Palace and the same thing happened to her and she spoke out about it, that would not have made front pages.
Oh, yeah.
It would not have made front pages. But because they had,
about that.
it wouldn't,
I
trust
don't
me.
know about
It
that.
might have been
I
the
was
third
shocked when it
page,
did.
it might have been the
I
fourth
don't know,
page, but
because
it would
also
not have been the
guys
front
have to
page.
remember, there's been a shift in the world from when George Floyd happened. There was a shift from before of people acknowledging racism, and every single organization started handing out money to all of us. Hey, take money quick. You know what I mean? And but it's true. Do you know what I mean? So there was already this conversation. There was already bubbling of we are not respected.
True, but
we
some
are
people
not.
did
So,
distance themselves from that story, though. That's the only caveat I would say.
Yeah.
Because some people just say, oh, but that's the US. And
Right.
this did bring it home. So I think it's just a spoke.
In regards to George Floyd and Meghan Markle didn't happen within the same year. But what I will say is that Meghan's experience and them talking on Oprah has had a lasting impact, whereas George Floyd hasn't. And I think it hasn't. I write about police brutality and has one story ended up on the front page. Last year alone, we had Chris Cabba. Did you see him on the front page? No, you didn't. But the Ngozi Fulani situation, when that happened, everybody put that on their front page. She was on every single TV channel talking about what happened to her. And that is the impact that these people have had by speaking out about what happened to them.
There's a big wall that we're pulling down. And it's unfortunately, it is literally one brick at a time. And I think that's the thing. It will never feel like we are pulling down the wall fast enough. Each of these things that happen, it's just one brick after. George Floyd didn't change the world in the way we would have liked it to, but it has changed the world.
Oh, it absolutely
What's
has.
happened with Meghan and Harry, I believe, has 100% changed the world, but it's just one brick at a time. It does not mean that you can walk into a shop now and assume that you won't be followed. But yes, this has been the +44 podcast. I'd like to thank you guys so much for joining us and for adding and contributing to the conversation so wonderfully and articulately. Continue to do what you do in your spaces. We thank you for joining us. Make some noise! Woo!
So before we go, be sure to check out all the new releases this week across the +44 playlist on Amazon Music.
As well as the main +44 playlist, we also have the R&B playlist, the rap playlist, and the Afro playlist.
And make sure you follow us on Instagram at +44UK, where you can see snippets of this podcast, exclusive content, and stay up to date with all new music releases.
You have been listening to the +44 podcast from Wondery with me, Sideman.
And me, Zeze Millz.
Listen to the +44 podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or listen early and ad-free on Amazon Music. The +44 podcast is produced by So Incredible with Wondery, audio engineered by Nathan Cooper, filmed and edited by Marcus Accent, photography by Naomi Koji Payton. The podcast is filmed at Fiction Studios. The executive producer for So Incredible was Harry Anthony. The executive producers for Wondery and Amazon Music were Estelle Doyle, Richard Knight, Jessica Radburn, and Marshall Louis.
Thanks to Melissa and Ramel for joining us this week, and thanks to you for listening.
Listen to the +44 podcast wherever you get your podcasts,
Or listen early and ad-free on Amazon Music.